Okay, think about this number. Over 13.5 trillion hours.
Wow.
That's how much time all of us globally spend online every single year. It's just immense, a huge resource, really.
It's almost impossible to visualize, isn't it?
Totally. And today, in our deep dive, we're going to get into how all that online time actually, creates wealth in the digital world.
Right, how it fuels the digital economy.
Exactly. We'll look at the different ways companies turn our clicks, our views, our engagement into money based on the research and articles we've gathered.
And the scale you mentioned,
Hmm.
that's the starting point. Back in early 2025, the estimate was what, 5.6 billion internet users?
Something like that, yeah.
And each person, on average, spends around 6 hours and 38 minutes online every single day.
That's a significant chunk of a
It
day.
really is. Do the math, and you get about 37 billion hours globally per day.
Which gets us to that 13.5 trillion hours annually.
Precisely. And it's not just time passing. It's this massive pool of human attention, human activity.
Yeah.
That's a bedrock, really, of the whole digital economy.
Which leads us perfectly into this idea of the attention economy. It feels like that term is everywhere now. Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. So the attention economy, fundamentally, it's about a shift. In a world just flooded with information, grabbing someone's attention is the real challenge.
Right, there's so much competing for it.
Exactly. So attention itself becomes this incredibly valuable thing, this commodity. And the number one way companies turn that attention into, well, revenue is through advertising.
So our eyeballs are basically assets in this digital marketplace.
In a way, yes. Highly sought after assets.
Okay, that makes sense. Which brings us to our first big example, Meta, Facebook, Instagram. Advertising seems like their whole game.
Oh, absolutely. It's the absolute core of how Meta makes money. They've built this incredibly successful machine based on placing very targeted ads.
And that targeting relies heavily on user data, right? And AI and machine learning.
Without a doubt. They gather vast amounts of data about what we do, what we like, and then they use sophisticated AI, these complex algorithms, to predict which ads we're most likely to respond to. It allows for really precise targeting.
So how do they actually collect all that data? We hear about cookies all the time.
Cookies are definitely a big part of it. Those little text files, they get placed on your device when you use their platforms or even other websites.
Right.
They track your activity sites you visit, things you look at, maybe even buy. And over time, that builds up a pretty detailed profile about your interests, your habits.
Which advertisers then use to zero in on specific groups.
Exactly. But it's not just cookies. There's also something called the Conversions API.
Ah, yes, I saw that mentioned. What does that do?
So the Conversions API is quite clever. It lets advertisers link their own data directly with Meta systems.
Your own data, like from their website.
Yeah, or their CRM system, their app, whatever. It creates this direct pipeline. And that helps them refine targeting even more, measure results better, and sometimes even lower their ad costs.
It sounds incredibly integrated, and they offer loads of different ad types too, don't they? Like it's not just one kind of ad.
Not at all. They have a whole menu. Lead form ads to collect contact info directly. Collection ads, which are really visual, showing off products.
Good for e-commerce, I imagine.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Then you've got event ads, marketplace ads, targeting people already looking to buy. It's a diverse toolkit.
And looking at the numbers, this strategy is clearly working. Their market share is huge.
It really is. In 2023, Meta apparently grabbed something like 75% of all social media ad spending in the U.S.
75%. Wow.
And Facebook alone, even with Instagram's growth, still brought in over half of Meta's U.S. ad revenue that year, over $51 billion.
Yeah,
Compared to rivals like TikTok, Meta's platforms are dominant.
that's dominance. And it seems like it's not just about reach, but also effectiveness. Like advertisers get good results.
That seems to be the case. A study from 2022 suggested Facebook was actually the second cheapest major social network in terms of cost per click.
Cheaper than you might expect.
Right. And businesses often report seeing a return on investment, an ROI, of maybe 8 to 12 times what they spent on Facebook and Instagram ads. That's a powerful incentive.
So if you had to boil it down, what makes Meta's advertising work so well?
Well, several things. Hyper-personalization is key, getting the right ad to the right person. They're really good at targeting warm leads, people who've already shown interest.
Like retargeting.
Exactly. Retargeting is huge for them. Plus, they constantly test and optimize ads in real time based on data. It's all very data-driven.
Makes sense.
And then things like creating urgency, having clear calls to action, using automation, It all adds up.
And the revenue growth reflects that. 2024 looked like a big year.
A very strong year. Q4 2024 ad revenue was almost $47 billion, up 21% year over year.
Wow.
And for the full year 2024, total ad revenue topped $160 billion. That's 22% growth from 2023. Consistent, strong growth.
And the price per ad went up too.
Yeah, the average price per ad increased, which suggests advertisers see the value and are willing to pay more to reach those users.
We can also look at ARPU, average revenue per user, to see how well they're monetizing, right?
Precisely. It gives you a sense of the value extracted per person. We know Facebook's worldwide ARPU was $13.12 in late 2023.
Okay.
And more recently, Meta's overall ARPU for Q4 2024 hit $14.25. But the really striking thing is the regional difference. In the US and Canada, the ARPU was way higher, $68.44 in that same quarter.
$68 compared to $14 globally. That's a huge gap.
It is. It likely reflects, more mature ad markets, higher consumer spending in those regions. But the overall trend for ARPU is up, showing they're getting better at turning our time into their revenue.
Okay, so Meta is a masterclass in social media advertising. Let's shift gears a bit to another tech giant, Alphabet, Google, YouTube. Advertising is massive for them too, but maybe a bit different.
Definitely massive, yes, but centered differently. Their powerhouses are Google Search and, of course, YouTube.
Right, Google Ads, that's the search stuff.
Exactly. It's mostly an auction system. Advertisers bid on keywords, the terms people type into Google.
And the highest bidders, or the most relevant ones, show up at the top.
Kind of a mix of both relevance and bid, yeah. And advertisers typically pay when someone actually clicks on their ad, the pay-per-click model.
And Google AdSense, how does that fit in?
AdSense is how Google puts ads on other websites, not just their own search results. Website owners can sign up, display Google Ads, and get a cut of the ad revenue generated from clicks on their site.
So it massively expands Google's ad network.
Hugely. It creates this vast inventory across the web.
And then there's YouTube. It's just colossal, isn't it? Not just for watching videos, but as an ad platform.
Absolutely colossal. Billions of hours watched. And they slot ads in everywhere, before videos, during, sometimes after. It gives businesses another huge, engaged audience to reach.
And Alphabet's financials for 2024 also showed pretty strong growth, didn't they?
They did. Q4 2024 consolidated revenue was up 12% to $96.5 billion.
$96 billion in one quarter.
Yep. And Google Services, which includes search ads, YouTube ads, etc., brought in $84 billion of that, up 10%. Full year 2024, Google Services revenue was nearly $350 billion, up 14% from 2023.
That's staggering. And they're using AI more now, too, like in search.
Right, things like AI overviews in search. They say over 1.5 billion people use those features monthly. That likely helps keep people engaged, potentially creates new ad opportunities down the line.
It's amazing to think Google basically invented that pay-per-click model with AdWords way back in 2000.
It really was revolutionary, directly linking search intent to ads.
Yeah.
And their advantage now is just scale. That massive user base constantly feeds their algorithms.
Making the ads better, the search results better.
Exactly. Plus, content creators optimize for Google, and tools like AdSense create that network effect. It's a powerful combination.
And YouTube's ad revenue on its own is pretty impressive.
Oh, definitely. Over $10.4 billion in Q4 2024 alone. That was up quite a bit from the year before. For the full year 2024, YouTube ads brought in $36.1 billion.
Still growing fast, then.
Seems like it. Reports suggest Q1 2025 ad revenue was nearing $9 billion, still showing double-digit growth year over year.
And it's not just ads, right? I think I saw something about Google Cloud's ARPU increasing, too.
That's right. They're focused on increasing revenue per user across their services, even in things like their workspace tools within Google Cloud. While we don't always see specific ARPU for Google Ads, the overall revenue growth tells the story. The time we spend there is increasingly valuable.
Okay, so we've got the ad giants, Meta, and Alphabet. But online time creates wealth in other ways too, right? E-commerce seems like the most direct one.
Absolutely. When you spend time browsing Amazon or another online store and actually buy something, that's a very direct conversion of time into revenue.
No middleman advertiser, just a transaction.
Exactly. It's a direct exchange of value.
And Amazon is the obvious behemoth here. Their model is so varied.
It really is. They started as a bookstore, right? Now they're this global conglomerate. They make money from selling their own products, sure, but also from fees from third-party sellers using their platform.
Right, the marketplace is huge.
Then there's Amazon Prime subscriptions, which build loyalty and drive sales. Amazon Web Services, AWS, is a massive profit engine in cloud computing. And, like Google and Meta, they have a growing advertising business within their own ecosystem.
It feels like they've built this walled garden where everything you do potentially makes them money.
That's a good way to put it. Shopping, streaming, cloud, it all feeds into interconnected revenue streams. And the scale is immense. Net sales in Q1 2025 were nearly $156 billion.
Up 9%.
Yep. And full year 2024 was $638 billion in sales. And think about traffic, over 2.8 billion visits to Amazon.com in just 1 month earlier this year. That's incredible engagement.
Then you have companies like Shopify. They're not Amazon, but they enable a lot of that e-commerce.
Exactly. Shopify provides the tools for other businesses, often smaller ones, to set up their own online shops.
So they make money from subscriptions.
Subscriptions, yeah, and also merchant solutions, things like processing payments via Shopify payments, offering shipping labels, that kind of thing.
So the time people spend shopping on stores built with Shopify benefits both the store owner and Shopify itself.
Precisely. They facilitate the whole experience. And they're growing rapidly, too. Over $6 billion in revenue in the first 3 quarters of 2024, projected to hit nearly $9 billion for the full year. Their own site gets huge traffic, too, for merchants and developers.
Okay, so beyond ads and direct buying, what else? Data monetization sounds a bit abstract, but important.
It's incredibly important, though often less visible to us. Basically, everything we do online browsing, buying, liking, sharing, generates data.
Our digital footprint.
Exactly. Companies collect and analyze this data. Why? To make their ads better, obviously. To personalize the content we see. To figure out how to improve their products or what new services to offer.
So it's like massive ongoing market research.
On a scale never seen before, yes. Sometimes, anonymized, aggregated data like broad trends might even be licensed or sold to other companies. Raw user activity gets turned into business intelligence, which generates revenue.
Interesting. And then there's this other angle, digital labor, the idea that we're sort of working for free.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. A lot of the value on major platforms comes from content and activity generated by users, often unpaid. Well, think of Wikipedia, an incredible resource built entirely by volunteers spending their online time writing and editing articles.
Right, they're not paid employees.
No. But their collective effort creates immense value for the platform, attracting visitors, boosting its reputation. Or think about social media. Every post, comment, share we make drives engagement.
Keeps people on the platform longer, makes it more attractive to advertisers.
Exactly. Our motivation might just be connecting with friends or expressing ourselves, but that activity is a form of labor that contributes directly to the platform's wealth. It's often overlooked, but it's significant.
It does feel complicated, though. Like, it's hard to say exactly how many minutes I spent online just to make Mark Zuckerberg richer, you know?
Oh, completely.
Right.
Trying to quantify that for an individual is basically impossible. We're online for so many reasons, talking to family, watching cat videos, learning things.
All mixed together.
Right. And while we're doing those things, we see ads, we generate data. Our personal motivations overlap with the activities that generate value for others. It's not like clocking in for a specific job.
Yeah, it's much blurrier than that, especially compared to, say, a subscription service where the payment is direct.
Exactly. On platforms heavily reliant on ads or data, the link between my specific hour online and their specific dollar earned is indirect and complex.
So bringing this all together as we wrap up,
Right.
what's the main takeaway from this deep dive? How does all this time turn into money?
I think the main point is that this vast ocean of online time is systematically monetized, but through multiple, often interconnected channels. Primarily advertising, yes, but also e-commerce, data analysis and monetization, and even this unpaid digital labor.
And even if we can't put an exact number on the hours spent only enriching platforms, our collective engagement is undeniably the engine driving a huge part of the digital economy's wealth.
Absolutely. The attention economy is real, and the value embedded in our online activity is profound. It shapes the economic landscape in fundamental ways.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? So maybe a final thought for you, our listener. How do you feel about the balance, the value you get from being online versus the economic value you generate for platforms?
Yeah, what are the implications of that dynamic for the internet's future, for the economy? Could there be other models that maybe value our contributions differently?
Definitely food for thought.
Yep.
Something to mull over next time you're scrolling.